my story is it's pretty similar to a lot of chefs that have started in the industry, but there's a lot of different little uniqueness things that I think tie up great to any of the culinary students, as well as just entrepreneurship in general. So I'm happy to be here, and thank you, Junior Achievement, for having me. So to start, kind of like what Lauren said, at 15, I started washing dishes. I was a junior in high school, junior. And I really kind of just wanted to get a car, get my license, start driving, get out there. And I remember my dad said, cool. He's like, how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for your gas? How are you going to pay for your insurance? And I really didn't have an answer. So we used to go to this little restaurant called Lefty's. It was a little wings and raw bar place. It's still there today on Port St. Lucie Boulevard. Anyone who's online, who's up in the Treasure Coast. And we used to go there all the time, probably like 3-4 times a week. And he's like, oh, go work there, go wash dishes or something, go figure it out. So I did, and I went, I applied, came home from the bus. There was a message on our answering machine, because that's how old I am, and they said, yeah, come in for an interview. So I started washing dishes there, and I just loved it. It was, I'm an only child, so being able to go into an environment where I had 30, 40 brothers and sisters, and it was busy and it was chaotic and it was just fun. I thrived on it. It was fun. And all of a sudden I see these guys cooking and making food and having fun, and just that really interested me. And what really got me was when they taught me how to make fettuccine Alfredo, like the sauce from scratch, because I'd only ever seen it from a jar from my mom's cupboard, and I was like, this is my favorite thing ever. So that's kind of what got me hooked on cooking. And right after I turned 16, a couple months after I started there, they put me on the chicken wing station, and that's where I learned how to manage my tickets and cook food and cook things to order. And it was this rhythm, this dance, this energy that just permeated the whole restaurant, the whole team. And so anyway, from there I worked through high school in kitchens, and right around my junior year, actually it was right after the new year, I remember that, right when we kind of got in the second half of the year, I really just kind of made the decision. A 4-year college wasn't for me. I didn't want to do it. I was over school. I was ready to get out in the world. And so my manager at the time, I was working at a Ruby Tuesdays in the kitchen, and she said, Kyle, she goes, why don't you go to culinary school? And at the time, Emeril Lagasse was on TV and doing his show, so I always watched that. Hell's Kitchen season 1 had just come out, so I was enthralled with just this celebrity chef type atmosphere. And so I said, cool, let me look into it. And there's a culinary school. It's not there anymore, but it was down in West Palm, and it was called Florida Culinary Institute. So immediately after high school, I went into culinary school, and I got to work, man. I went to school in the morning, and I worked at this other high-end restaurant at night. And this was kind of where my career really started to solidify. When I told my father, I said, hey, Dad, I want to go be a chef and go to culinary school. He said, what, are you crazy? He goes, you're going to work 1 million hours a week, nights and weekends, no family, and you don't make that much money. And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, no, this is fun. This is a passion. Like, I enjoy it, and I don't know how, but I'll figure out how to make this, a career. And so what happened from there was I went through culinary school, and about halfway through, he was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer and ultimately passed away a few months after that. And so, that poor cup. So what happened was I really kind of just went all in on the kitchen. Having no brothers or sisters, I was an only child, and so I stayed local to be close to my mom, and I just worked. And I worked and worked and worked. About a year or two after he had passed, I got an opportunity to work with a chef that I had worked under. He was opening his own restaurant, and I started working with him, and about a year into it, he was ready to call it quits. He had some adult challenges, let's say, that took him out of the took him out of the game. And so my mom and I, we bought into it. And this is going back to about 2007, right before the market crash and the economy crash and everything else like that. So what ended up happening was we took it over. We ran it for another 2 years through the recession, but 2009 really just made it tough, and we ended up closing our restaurant. And this is really one of my first, certainly not last, but one of my first real true lessons of entrepreneurship came in, you know. And in entrepreneurship, and especially even in culinary, right, you've got to be aware of but not afraid to fail. And what ended up happening was we failed. We closed the restaurant, and it was really, really tough, you know. And when you fail, you end up learning, you should end up learning a lot more from than just continued success. So from there, I realized, you know, I needed more training, I needed more education, I needed more experience. And so at the time, you know, during the recession, there weren't a lot of restaurants hiring that were, you know, high ends. There weren't a lot of restaurants hiring that were paying that much, and I didn't want to go work at McDonald's or Lefty's. I had this dream to be a chef. So so I kept looking. I'd go down to West Palm, I'd go down to Del Rey, I went down to Boca, I went down to Fort Lauderdale, and just knocking on doors, applying everywhere I could, and nothing. And if I could get an interview, it was for $12 an hour. And I didn't want to settle for that, so I went all the way down to South Beach, Miami. And I said, well, they were always busy, so there's got to be some opportunity there. And I ended up getting an interview at Emeril Lagasse's. If anyone who pays attention to the culinary world, Emeril was pretty influential. I know he's kind of more retired now, but at the time, he had an awesome restaurant in the Lowe's Hotel in South Beach. And a chef, the executive chef who hired me, actually was an executive chef with another company that I worked at prior that knew the chef I worked for at the time. They had multiple locations. And it was really cool. He says, if I call Chef Roy right now, he's like, what's he gonna tell me about you? And I said, well, he's gonna tell you I'm a hard worker. I show up, I know how to cook, and I can run your line and run your kitchen. So he goes, okay. He picks up his phone, calls Chef Roy, and says, hey, tell me about this Kyle Greene guy. And he said basically everything I just said. And he hired me, and it was crazy because I had to wait almost an hour and a half in a line for this interview, and they're just going through candidates. And he looks up and he says, hey, he's like, go tell all those other people to go home. He's like, first job. Second, let's go start peeling onions. So that's what I did, and that was tremendous for me. I mean, I learned a lot. I got to meet a lot of cool chefs, Emeril Lagasse, Bobby Flay, Giada De Laurentiis, a bunch of those celebrity chefs, and that really kind of just helped bolster my career as how far you can really take this culinary game. From there, after about a year or two down there, I came back up north, up to the Treasure Coast, and I took a front of house position. I wanted to learn the front of house. I wanted to learn service. I was with Capitol Grill in Palm Beach Gardens for 3 years, I want to say, and it was great. I learned a lot about the front. I learned a lot about everything I need to do on the front of the house for service to engage those guests, to learn about the guest perceptions, how they think, what they're looking for, and that really helped me become a better chef. From there, then what happened? Then I went to, I was ready to get back into management, right? And after 3 years of serving, I had kind of just, it was kind of the same thing every day, and I was starting to get bored. So I found a country club that was looking for a chef / food beverage director, and I said, well, I've got the front of the house knowledge, I got the back of the house knowledge, I'm pretty decent with the numbers, so let me try this food and beverage director position. So I did that for just about a year, and I hated the country club world. I don't want to knock it. There's a lot of chefs that make really good livings in the country clubs, but it wasn't for me. It's just the same thing all the time, the same wedding, catering, parties, the same people come in the same time of the day, they eat the same tuna fish salad sandwich, and I'm like, man, this is boring. And so I was really fortunate. There was a gentleman that I knew from like 10 years prior. He was a customer of mine. He was a billionaire. He bought this really awesome restaurant that sat empty up in our area. It's on the beach. It's on stilts. It's a big, like 8,000 square foot building. And I had actually worked there as a senior in high school. The restaurant had sat empty. He bought it, renovated it, and leased it to a guy who hired me as his executive chef. It was the first time this restaurant got to reopen. It's a 350-seat oceanfront restaurant with a big patio and outdoor bar on one side and indoor bar on the other. And it was the first time it had been reopened in about a decade to the public. And so I got to write the menu and develop all the recipes, and I opened it as the executive chef. And again, it was just fight after fight. You got to keep fighting for it. You got to keep fighting for those wins. And we had a lot of challenges there. The owner was really despicable, to say the least. And I really couldn't get enough team members on board to do what we were trying to do. And what I mean by that is, he didn't give me the tools to give people raises. He only wanted to pay people minimum wage. He didn't want to pay anyone overtime. And so I was constantly just losing team members, and being there 85, 90 hours a week, I said, yeah, there's a better life to this. This isn't what I signed up for. So I was able to take a step down from executive chef to sous chef, but with a company called Eddie V's. They just opened one down in Boca, sister company, Capital Grill. They took me to Orlando. I did my training there, right there in Orlando. And then after I got through my 3 months of training, they said, hey, we want to send you to San Diego. You're doing good. That's our busiest and largest restaurant, and they need help. So go out there for a month, go help them out. I said, sure, boss, whatever you need. I went out there for a month and came back 3 years later. They didn't want to let me go. So it was awesome. Being out there gave me the tools and the skill sets to do high quality food at high volumes. I mean, we would do 600-700 covers a night. John Cena lived right around the corner from this restaurant. I mean, it was really, really cool. A bunch of Google executives. I mean, it was just really awesome to be able to, be in this proximity of all these, really just high profile guests. So I ended up moving back to Florida. My family's here, friends are here. And there was an opportunity to come back, so I did. And maybe like a year after that, I got in touch with the gentleman who bought that really big, beautiful building, and he had thrown out the guy that he leased it to, I was the chef for, and he had nobody to go and take this restaurant over, And I mean, this is just an iconic spot in our spot. And I said, hey, I've been doing all this stuff these last 6 years. Give me a shot. And he did, and we opened in September of 2017, and we absolutely just crushed the numbers that the guy was doing prior. And we opened it up 6 years ago now, and that has led to us to grow to about 6 restaurants, with number 7 and 8 on the way, and currently we have about 500 team members. So it's been quite an interesting journey, to say the least. And they're all different concepts too, so it's not like we're just doing one of the same concepts. So they're all different, and they all range from high-end steak and seafood restaurants all the way down to a casual Italian restaurant, and we actually have a Latin rotisserie chicken and cocktail bar coming up, which will be open about February, the first half of the year. So that's the story as far as how and where I got from dishwasher to where we are now. On the entrepreneur aspect of it, I mean, I love cooking, right? Cooking's where I started. Cooking's fun. I don't get to do it nearly as much as I like to do. I've got really good chefs that work on our teams, and I get to work with them. But it started there, right? And real quick question: you guys are all culinary students, correct? All right. Anybody know the definition or kind of where the word entrepreneur comes from? Ever think about that? All right, so follow me on this. So entrepreneur comes from a French term called entreprendre, and it means to undertake, right? To undertake something where to undertake the process of buying something and making it become more valuable, right? So for example, if you've got a potato, right? If you buy a potato, your goal as an entrepreneur is to sell that potato for more than what you bought the potato for, right? And keep the rest. Well, how do you do that, right? You've got to do something to that potato, whether you make it into really good mashed potatoes or a French fry or a baked potato or some type of potato chip or something along those lines. You with me? And so you're undertaking this task, this product, you're risking capital and then turning it into more capital. And what's really unique about the culinary industry from an entrepreneurship side that I don't think most people realize is you deal with so many aspects of the business chain all in one spot. What I mean by that is, think about like a car, right? If Toyota's making a car, they manufacture the car, then it gets to a dealer, then the dealer deals with the end user, right? The restaurant, not so much. You get the potato, you manufacture it, you prepare it, you do whatever it is you're doing with this potato, fish, steak, whatever you want to call it. Then you've got to train your people how to sell it, how to do it, how to cook it, how to do all of that stuff. And then you got to go deliver it to the guest, right? You got to go deliver it to the guest, which is the end user, and then they're going to tell you how well or how poorly you prepared that potato and how much they like it or they don't like it. And the other thing they don't tell you about culinary entrepreneurship is restaurants, and maybe I'm a little biased, but restaurants are the most highly scrutinized businesses in the world, man. It's crazy. You know, it's, oh, my mashed potatoes are cold, 1-star review, don't ever go there, I'm telling all my friends, blah, 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 blah. But it's also, you can do the same thing at the 5-star level, right? When they say, oh my God, this was amazing, you have to go there. So you really have this dichotomy of this emotional tie to where people either love you or hate you in the culinary world. And I mean that not to discourage you, but to empower you, because this business is so awesome. I mean, it can take you to places that you only see in the books or magazine. Well, I guess on Instagram and TikTok these days. See, I'm a little bit older. We had magazines back then. And I mean, you know, how many of you guys like to travel, right? Anyone ever think about being a chef on a cruise ship? See, this guy did. Nice. You can go anywhere you want to go on those cruise ships, being a chef there and do that, or getting in with the hotels, because they've got hotels all around the world. I mean, there's so many amazing things that you can do through this, whether it's the front of the house, the back of the house. There's just so many amazing things you can do with it. So tying it back to entrepreneurship, it's, you get to be a jack of all trades in this industry, right? You get to learn people management, you get to learn repairs and maintenance, right? Not that that's fun. Well, it might be for some people, it's not for me. But you know, you have to know all these things, because at the end of the day, dinner service starts tomorrow and you've got product that's perishable, right? If you say, oh, yep, no, the water pipe broke, closed down service tonight, what are you going to do with your cooler full of food? You could have $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 of food in that cooler that's going to go bad. If you don't sell it, you're going to be out of that capital, right? And that's not something that you really want to be throwing down the drain. So I think entrepreneurship in the culinary world, or the culinary world, is probably one of the highest forms of entrepreneurship because of all the different aspects that you get to deal with in the business world per se. So there's a tremendous amount of challenges, but the whole idea about entrepreneurship is to innovate and overcome those challenges, and to keep going so you can turn that into something that's profitable. Yes, ma'am.
So what do you look for in someone that you want to hire?
So what I look for in someone I want to hire is some of the things. The first question I'll ask you is why do you want to do what you do, right? What inspires you? What's your desire? Because what I'm looking for when I ask that is I'm looking for a little bit of fortitude, right? Because everyone says, oh, they can say, chef, I'm really excited about cooking and this, that, the other, and I'm passionate about cooking, and this is going to be really fun, and that's great. But you know, if anyone who's ever been truly passionate about something, you know, passion can ebb and flow. You can sometimes become discouraged with that thing or person, right? So I'm looking for the desire, because that's what will keep people going when times get tough. Because we're going to have a bad day, whether it's a bad service, whether we burn our hand right before service, and what are we going to do? I mean, are we going to keep going, or are we going to say, chef, I need to be off for the week? I mean, depending on the degree of the burn, I suppose. But if it's it's not that bad, you got to keep going and push through. So, but again, same thing in the front of house, right? If we're looking for front of house team members, we need a little bit of fortitude, because, like I said, we're gonna have bad days, and that's what's gonna keep us going when we have ultimately those difficult shifts or service or whatever the case may be. And then I think the second thing that we look for is we look for openness, right? And or open-mindedness and humility. We look for people that can say, hey, yep, let me learn what it is you're doing, and then, hey, I had an idea. What do you think about if we garnish this dish like this, or if we do something else different in the front? You know, we look for those types of attributes, so to speak, so that they can be great team members, and collectively we can move our team forward and our teams can win. Speaking of that, and then I'll open up to Q&A. Are we okay on time? You know, to give you guys an idea of the degree that my teams execute on, the last 2 years in a row, we've won Best Restaurant, Best Steakhouse, and Best Fine Dining for 2 of our concepts through the TC Palm. On Open Table, which is a national ranked reservation system, we've won top 100 restaurants in the country the last 6 years in a row, top 100 brunches in the country the last 6 years in a row, and top 50 date night restaurants the last 2 years in a row up at their restaurant on the beach. So, I mean, we're pretty well acclaimed. Last 2 weeks, we've had 500 reviews come through, and 96% of them have been 4 and 5 stars. So, I mean, it's been really, really tremendous. In our higher end restaurants, our average check per person is about $120 per person. And in our more affordable restaurants, they're about $45 per person. Just to give you guys an idea of kind of the scope, size and scope we're talking about here. So it's pretty cool when you have 500 team members working towards these common goals and executing at a high level. You know, and our team members are happy. Most of them have been with me since the beginning. If not, they've come on board, and you know, we don't lose team members. It's been fantastic. Yes?
Do you have like a formal training for the people you hire, or it's kind of like you observe and you go?
We do. We have a training process which is, you know, tailored to the different level of positions within the restaurants, whether it's an entry-level position or a management position. You know, our managers and chefs go through a 9-week training process just to acclimate them to the restaurant and the tools and where to find the information they need. Our service and culinary teams have about a 5 to 7 day training program. And so that's kind of how we get them all, you know, situated on their tasks. Like if it's a line cook and you're working the hot app station, you're going to focus in on that, learn everything you need to learn, write your recipes, study your recipes, take the tests. That way you can be efficient on that station and productive, and as you move up through the ranks in the kitchen, well, so does your pay. So, you know, we start our line cooks anywhere between $20 and $25 an hour. Our dishwashers start at $18, and yeah, we have awesome benefits: 401k, dental, life, health. Paid as an hourly line cook, you get paid vacation as you accrue it as you work for over 32 hours a week as a full time. So, we have a lot of really cool perks that. You know, I never got paid vacation as a line cook. I'll tell you that coming up. So, yes.
So Lucas from Lake Worth Culinary Academy asked,
What's up, Lucas?
favorite food to prepare?
My favorite food to prepare is, so I'm a steak guy. I love steak, right? So I love steak, but I love doing it with a side dish of handmade pasta or gnocchi. It's just, there's something about being able to just, you know, have that robust, earthy meatiness. I like the grill, to be able to do that, and then, you know, handmade pasta or gnocchi like that. So, simple.
Making us hungry.
No, my pleasure.
I have a question.
Yes.
So when I think about the challenges of being a business owner, I feel like they were amplified during the pandemic. The hospitality industry took a dramatic blow. How did you stay afloat, and what like tokens of motivation would you give those who are thinking, I don't know if I got what it takes to endure the ebbs and flows?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I was actually hoping that question would come up. So thank you, Denise. So, you know, as you guys kind of continue, you know, through school, you know, and beyond school, you're going to find, and I'm sure you probably all already have some of it, you're going to find some sayings or some ideas or some mantras that you guys can stick with. So for me, when we opened the restaurant, you know, it was about building our culture, right? And so we kind of set out our core values. And when things get tough, especially when you're if you're at the most senior level and you've got to make these decisions, revert back to your core values so that they can guide your way, right? That's really what they're there for. So to answer your question, it was we reverted back to our core values and our mission statement, which at the time was serving smiles one plate at a time. And so I said, great, if I can't serve smiles inside the restaurant, we're going to do it outside the restaurant. And so I put it out online, and then on Facebook, a handful of our community partners reached out and said, hey, we've got some ideas. What we did was, for about the first month that they shut the world down through COVID, I told my team, hey, whoever wants to show up, great. If you feel like you're not safe, don't worry about it. And we produced meals for underserved and underprivileged parts of our community for free. The community foundation stepped up and gave us $5 a person to help us pay for our labor and our product. And we served about 25,000 people in our community that first month for free. And we also opened a drive-through at the fairgrounds because we could get bottled water, we could get soap, we could get paper towels, we could get toilet paper. And nobody else could get toilet paper. So we did a drive-through, we set up an online shopping cart, and we did that just to kind of keep our team going, get food on the table for them, and take care of our community. So it was really, it's really unique. Kind of as the grocery stores were able to get those products again, obviously, the demand for that wasn't there. So we shut it down. And then when we came back from COVID, we really just made sure we focused on the quality of our team member experience, right, with our teams working with us, and the quality of our guest experience. We made sure we used that as an opportunity to come back better than ever. See, entrepreneurship's kind of strange. You've got to find the counter idea to what everyone else is doing, right? And at the time, all of the other restaurants were cutting their labor, or all their managers were working the line, and they were cheapening their product because they had to squeeze their margins. For me, I said, well, let's do the opposite of that, and let's make sure we have better quality. Let's make sure we have better service. Let's make sure we have more of our team members being able to take care of our guests. And when we did that, it paid off, and our guests were like, man, this is awesome. We've got some sense of normalcy again. We're coming back every time, and so that was crucial. In addition, COVID opened up some opportunities because restaurants weren't able to make it. So it opened up the potential for us to go ahead and acquire these spaces and then add more jobs. I think in our area, the Treasure Coast, we lost about 1,400 hospitality jobs. We were able to add 200 of those back because of the restaurants that we opened. So there's a world where it says, oh, well, you're taking advantage of, these places that had gone under, and we did to a degree. I mean, we didn't tell them to close, but they closed. But we were able to bring a lot of those jobs back into our community. So that was really the best way. And since we've, been through COVID, now, we've been able to kind of just build and expand and grow from there. So that was how we did it. Yes?
So when you have workers that really impress you, is there something in your mind that you think, oh, I'd love to offer them something different, or, have you come across that?
Absolutely. I mean, we actually kind of have that situation going on right now as we're building a restaurant, and we're looking to say, who's going to be the leaders in this next restaurant. We've got people that, are executing at a really high level, and, they're training the person behind them. And so then we go to them and say, hey, you know what, you're at a restaurant manager, we think you're ready to be an AGM or a general manager, or a sous chef who's doing really well, who's ready to take that next step up into a chef de cuisine role. So, or even a server who's waiting in the ranks to go into restaurant management. So it's, we now, since we have such a large pool, we have the majority of our people are internal promotes, and we might say, hey, I know you don't, you're working at the steakhouse, but what you're doing will work really well over at the oyster bar. Why don't you come over here and give it a shot? So, so yes, absolutely.
And do people that you hire have to have some kind of credential or like a degree, or like how does that work in the restaurant business? I joke and say it's the last form of piracy that's legal in the world. It's, it's not required. A lot of our sous chefs don't necessarily have our vice president of Culinary, who's been a good friend of mine for 20 years,
and we've worked side by side. He doesn't have a degree, but he's got the skill and he's got the character to far exceed the degree. I don't want to shortchange the idea of a degree. I think it's good. What I learned in culinary school was phenomenal. I mean, I learned why things happen. I learned why, bread rises when you mix yeast in it. I learned why you make this sauce this way, and I learned, a lot of the math behind it. But the one thing that I think culinary school, at least my experience, didn't teach me was how to do that. How do you, look at your 1,200 covers for the day and get a plan to execute that, rally your team, and make sure you allocate your resources properly. That's something I encourage you guys to learn on the job while you're working for other people before you go do it on your own dime and make those mistakes on your dime, because I made them on both, and it's a lot easier when somebody else is writing your check. So we don't look for it. I mean, if you look at our job descriptions when we do our postings, we say that those things could be preferred, but they're not knockout criteria, if that makes sense. We're really looking for the skill level and the level of focus and determination, if that makes sense. What other questions?
So the menu,
Yes.
is that something that your team puts together, or do you hire someone on the outside to really put that together?
Good question. No, the menu comes all internal. So really that, for the most part, it's myself and the gentleman I was just talking about. His name's Percy. We work really well together because I pay attention. Sorry.
Can you please send Jason Gonzalez a little bit, please?
Thank you.
Okay.
So I look for a lot of what's going on in the market with the trends. We follow the pricing, and we just try to figure out how can we innovate what we're already doing. So we'll work on a lot of that together. Like we just did a new menu at the Oyster Bar in June. We brought an Italian restaurant out of the ground and created that from scratch, and we're redoing our main restaurant on the beach. We're redoing that menu, and we'll have that out in January. So, I'll kind of get all the ideas down, put some things together. I'll send it to Percy. He'll say, well, what about this? What about that? And then we'll just bounce the ideas back and forth off each other, and then we'll come up with a menu. We'll test it out in one of the kitchens, and then we'll go execute it. So
Awesome. And then
it's
my
fun.
last question
Yes.
is, as an entrepreneur, how do you promote your business? Do you do that yourself? Do you have a team of people that do that? I know that really helps build
Yep.
clientele.
So, that's a multi-pronged answer. For the most obvious thing is we do have a marketing agency that keeps all of our style for each restaurant, the fonts, the logos, the colors, the pictures, all that kind of congruent for that concept. But that's only part of it. In my opinion, I think the rest of it really comes down to what we do in the restaurants every day, and how we execute, how we make our guests feel, the value we give to them, because, they'll get on, like I said, they'll get online and they'll share it, they'll take pictures, they'll say, look, we're celebrating here our anniversary, our birthday, graduation, and it's kind of like they're endorsing us, if you will, right? And now, our picture, our backdrop, our menu right there, the check-in when they do it on social media, that's being endorsed to, a few thousand people at a time. And so I think it's really, the marketing agencies are great, and they're indispensable, but it's really our team, right? And then I tell my management team all the time, I say, we take care of our team first and our guests second, because they're the ones that are on the front lines taking care of our guests, delivering that experience. They directly impact the quality of the food and the service. So if they're not happy, if they're not trained, if they don't have the tools that they need, like I had that experience, prior, then they can't do what they're supposed to do, and then they can't, then they get disgruntled, or, they're not happy, or they can't make as much money, and then they don't want to stay, so.
We have time for one last question, if anyone has any.
Shoot.
Is there a minimum skill requirement that you need to work at a restaurant?
No. Not in our restaurants. There's certainly entry-level positions that we have available, where there's, if somebody doesn't have a 1-year experience working somewhere, we can bring those folks in and get them trained. I mean, I actually have a handful of people that go to the high school that I graduated up from in St. Lucie at the restaurant right down the road, because it's like 3 miles away. And I've got probably half my team there is high school students. So it's, and you know, they started in culinary programs like this, and I'm like, hey, cool, come make salads, come do prep. Now you get to go to the oyster bar. Now you can go to saute, and yeah, they love it. So you just got to find the right spot. And I would encourage you guys really to, you know, look at your higher end restaurants. Those will be the ones that A, will probably bring you in, and B, you'll learn the most from. Sometimes you might learn what not to do, but that's pretty valuable as well. So.
Awesome. Well, listen, thank you so much.
Yeah,
for coming
thank you.
out, and
My pleasure.
I know you are really busy with your multiple restaurants
That's
and
true.
all of that, but we appreciate your time, and I truly feel that I know a lot about how to start a restaurant and really what it takes to be successful in that, and value your employees, value your customers, and make sure that, you know, value is really behind what drives your passion. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.